I know your marriage is fake. Esther David's blood turned to ice as Sarah Chin dropped the statement like a bomb across the charity gala's champagne table. Around them, Seoul's elite mingled in designer gowns and tailored suits, oblivious to the fact that Esther's entire life was about to detonate. Sarah's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. Contract marriage. 18 months. You needed money for your brother's surgery. Ming needed a wife to satisfy his traditional investors. She leaned closer, her perfume expensive and suffocating. I have the bank transfers, the timeline, everything. One call to the board, and Ming loses his company. You lose that money. Your brother loses his treatment. Esther's mind raced. Across the ballroom, Ming was deep in conversation with potential investors, unaware that his ex-girlfriend had just cornered his fake wife with enough evidence to destroy them both. What do you want? Esther asked quietly. Sarah's eyes glittered with something between triumph and pain. I want him to hurt the way he hurt me. But first, I want to know, does he even know you've fallen in love with him? 14 months earlier, Esther had never heard of Kim Ming. She was hunched over her laptop in a London hospital waiting room at 3 a.m, desperately researching experimental spinal surgeries while her younger brother Daniel slept fitfully in his bed down the hall. The doctors had been clear. Without the surgery, the 16-year-old would lose mobility in his legs within 6 weeks. With it, he had a 90% chance of full recovery. The cost was £180,000. Esther's architectural firm was barely surviving. Her savings were depleted from their father's funeral 2 years prior. Every bank had rejected her loan applications. She'd sold everything of value. There was nothing left. You look like you could use this more than me, a nurse said, placing a coffee beside her laptop. The kindness broke something in Esther, and she found herself crying silently, shoulders shaking, trying not to wake the other families in the waiting room. 3 weeks later, Esther stood in a conference room in Seoul, presenting her sustainable housing designs to a room full of tech investors. She'd almost canceled the trip, but her business partner had insisted. They needed this contract to stay afloat. So Esther pushed her fear down deep, painted on her professional smile, and talked about green architecture like her world wasn't collapsing. Your approach is innovative, but ultimately idealistic, a voice said from the back of the room. You're designing for a future that doesn't exist yet. Esther turned to face the speaker. Kim Ming sat with perfect posture, his dark eyes fixed on her with unsettling intensity. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than her plane ticket, and his expression was completely neutral. I'm designing for a future that has to exist, Esther replied, keeping her voice steady. Because if we keep building the way we have been, there won't be a future at all. Something shifted in Ming's expression. Not quite a smile, but close. Strong words. Can you back them up with data? For the next 20 minutes, they debated climate models, construction materials, and the intersection of technology and sustainability. Ming challenged every point she made, but unlike most men who argued with her, he actually listened to her responses. By the end, Esther felt exhilarated and exhausted. After the presentation, Ming's assistant approached with a business card. Mr. Kim would like to invite you to dinner tonight. 8 o'clock. To discuss a potential collaboration. Esther looked at the card, then across the room where Ming was already deep in conversation with someone else. Something told her this dinner would be more than a business discussion, but she couldn't afford to turn down any opportunity. Not with Daniel's surgery deadline looming. Ming's penthouse overlooked the Han River, all glass and steel and minimalist perfection. Esther felt out of place in her simple black dress, standing in a space that looked like it belonged in an architecture magazine rather than someone's home. You don't like it, Ming said, appearing beside her with 2 glasses of wine. It's beautiful, Esther replied carefully. But it doesn't feel lived in. It feels like a showroom. Ming's lips quirked slightly. Most people are afraid to be that honest with me. Most people aren't me. They sat at a table set for 2, and for a while they discussed business. Ming's company was developing revolutionary green energy storage systems. He wanted to integrate them into residential buildings. Esther's designs would be perfect for a pilot project. Then Ming set down his fork and looked at her directly. I'm going to make you an offer, and I need you to hear me out completely before responding. Esther's stomach tightened. I'm listening. I need a wife. Temporarily. For 18 months. The room seemed to tilt. Esther gripped the edge of the table. Excuse me? Ming's expression remained calm, as if he'd just proposed a normal business deal. My company is going public next month. My board of directors and primary investors are traditional Korean businessmen who believe a married CEO projects stability and reliability. They've given me until the end of the quarter to marry, or they'll replace me with someone who better represents their values. That's insane, Esther breathed. That's business in Seoul, Ming corrected. I've spent 7 years building this company from nothing. I'm not losing it because a group of old men think marriage certificates matter more than quarterly earnings. So marry someone you know. Someone from your social circle. I tried that once. It ended badly. Ming's jaw tightened. My ex-girlfriend was my business partner. When our relationship fell apart, she leaked confidential company information to our competitors. I lost 3 major contracts and nearly lost everything. I won't make that mistake again. Esther shook her head, trying to process what she was hearing. Why me? Because you need money, and I need a wife who won't try to stay in my life after the contract ends. I had you researched after your presentation. You're brilliant, ethical, and drowning in medical debt for your brother's surgery. You're also not connected to Korean business circles, which means a clean exit when we're done. The clinical way he described her desperation should have offended her. Instead, Esther felt a strange sense of recognition. He wasn't pretending this was anything other than what it was, a transaction. How much? She asked quietly. £200,000 upon signing. Another £100,000 when the 18 months conclude and we divorce quietly. Esther's breath caught. That was more than enough for Daniel's surgery and his follow-up treatments. Enough to save her business. Enough to stop the suffocating panic that had become her constant companion. What would this marriage entail? Ming pulled out a tablet and brought up a document. You'd move to Seoul immediately. Live here in the penthouse. Attend necessary business and social functions as my wife. Maintain the appearance of a genuine relationship in public. In private, we maintain separate lives and separate bedrooms. No romantic involvement expected or desired. For 18 months. Exactly 18 months. After my company's IPO stabilizes and the board's concerns are satisfied, we divorce quietly. You return to London with your money, and we never contact each other again. Esther stared at the contract on the screen. Every word was carefully crafted, every contingency planned. This was a man who controlled everything in his life, who trusted nothing to chance or emotion. I need time to think, she said. You have 48 hours. Your brother's surgery is scheduled for 6 weeks from now, correct? Without a deposit, the hospital will give his spot to someone else. The reminder was brutal but effective. Esther met Ming's dark eyes and saw no cruelty there, just cold pragmatism. He was offering her a lifeline, even if it came wrapped in a contract that would require her to lie to everyone she knew. If I agree, everyone would have to believe it's real. My family, my friends, your colleagues. Yes, my brother is sick. I can't let him think his recovery came from me selling myself. Then we'll craft a love story they'll believe, Ming said simply. We met at the conference. Connection was instant. I pursued you. You were charmed despite your reservations. A whirlwind romance that led to marriage. People believe what they want to believe. Esther thought of Daniel in that hospital bed, thought of watching her vibrant, athletic little brother slowly lose the use of his legs. Thought of their mother working double shifts trying to scrape together money they'd never have in time. I need to know something first, she said. Why are you really doing this? You could hire an actress, someone trained to play a role. Why go through the trouble of finding someone desperate enough to say yes? For the first time, something genuine flickered across Ming's face. Because actresses want to be seen. They want attention and credit for their performance. You want to disappear back to your life when this is over. That's more valuable to me than any performance. The honesty was almost painful. This man had been hurt badly enough that he'd rather buy a wife than risk his heart again. 48 hours, Esther said, standing. I'll give you my answer then. Back in her hotel room, Esther called her best friend Maya, who'd known her since university. I need to ask you a hypothetical question. This sounds ominous, Maya replied. If you could save Daniel's life by doing something morally questionable but not illegal, would you? There was a long pause. How morally questionable are we talking? Lying to everyone we know for 18 months. Esther, what's going on? So Esther told her everything. The offer, the contract, the impossible decision weighing on her chest like a stone. Maya was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I can't tell you what to do. But I can tell you that Daniel needs you alive and present more than he needs you morally pure. If you save his life but destroy yourself with guilt, what's the point? So you think I should do it? I think you should do what lets you sleep at night. But Esther, if you do this, promise me one thing. Don't fall in love with him. This Ming guy sounds like he's built walls so high, you'd break yourself trying to climb them. Get the money, save Daniel, and get out. Promise me. I promise, Esther said. She had no idea how impossible that promise would become. Before we continue, if you're enjoying this story, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more captivating stories every week. Your support means everything to us. 47 hours later, Esther sat across from Ming in his lawyer's office. The contract was spread between them, official and binding. Ming's expression was unreadable as always. Last chance to back out, he said quietly. Esther thought of Daniel's text from that morning. Surgery scheduled for 5 weeks from today. Trying not to get my hopes up, but I really want to walk at graduation next year. She picked up the pen. Where do I sign? The courthouse wedding was efficient and cold. Ming wore a dark suit. Esther wore a cream-colored dress she'd bought that morning. No flowers, no music, no guests. Just a judge who married them in less than 10 minutes and handed them a certificate that would change both their lives. We need photographs, Ming said as they exited the courthouse. My PR team has arranged photographers. Look happy. So Esther smiled as cameras flashed. Ming's hand settled on her lower back, warm and possessive, pulling her close. For the cameras, she told herself. Just for the cameras. Congratulations on your marriage, Mr. Kim, a reporter called out. How did you meet your bride? She challenged every assumption I had about sustainable architecture, Ming replied smoothly. I knew within 5 minutes of meeting her that I'd found someone extraordinary. I wasn't letting her get away. The lie rolled off his tongue so easily that Esther almost believed it herself. Moving into the penthouse felt surreal. Esther's entire London flat could have fit in the master suite's walk-in closet. Her room was beautiful but impersonal, like everything else in Ming's carefully controlled world. Mrs. Park comes daily to manage the household, Ming explained as he showed her around. She'll prepare meals, handle cleaning, run any errands you need. My driver is available whenever you require transportation. Credit cards are in your name for any personal expenses. This feels very pretty woman, Esther said before she could stop herself. Ming's eyebrow raised slightly. Except you're not a prostitute, and I'm not trying to save you. This is a business arrangement. Don't romanticize it. The cold dismissal stung more than it should have. Noted. I leave for work at 6 and rarely return before midnight. You'll have the penthouse to yourself most days. Just be available when I need you for public appearances. Anything else I should know? Ming hesitated, then said, Don't rearrange things. I like my space organized a specific way. Esther looked around at the sterile perfection. Don't worry. I have no interest in adding life to your museum. Something flickered in Ming's eyes, but he just nodded and left her alone in her new prison of luxury. If you're still watching, you're feeling the tension between Esther and Ming already. What do you think about Ming's no romance rule? Do you believe a contract marriage can ever stay purely business? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, hit that like button if you're hooked, and make sure you subscribe, because the next moments are where emotions start to break through the contract. The first month was lonely. Ming kept his word about being absent. Esther would wake to find him already gone, the only evidence of his presence a coffee cup in the sink. She'd spend her days working remotely for her London firm, video calling with Daniel about his successful surgery and recovery, and rattling around the enormous penthouse like a ghost. But then Ming's mother invited them to dinner. This is unavoidable, Ming said the night before, actually home for once. My mother is traditional and suspicious. She'll be looking for cracks in our story. What's our story exactly? So they sat at the kitchen island and built their fictional romance. They'd met at the conference. He'd pursued her with flowers and persistent dinner invitations. She'd resisted at first, worried about the cultural differences and distance. He'd worn her down with charm and determination. They'd married quickly because when you know. That last part is nauseating, Esther said. That last part is what my mother will want to hear. Ming's expression softened slightly. She's a romantic despite everything. My father died when I was 12. She never remarried. She wants to believe love is worth sacrificing for. It was the most personal thing Ming had ever shared with her. Esther felt something shift between them, a crack in his carefully maintained walls. Dinner with Mrs. Kim was exactly as terrifying as Esther had anticipated. Ming's mother was elegant and sharp-eyed, watching every interaction between them with laser focus. Ming's younger sister Hannah was friendlier, immediately pulling Esther aside in the kitchen. "I'm so glad he found you," Hannah said warmly. "I was worried he'd turn into a robot permanently. He's been so closed off since Sarah." "Sarah?" Hannah's eyes widened. "He didn't tell you about her?" "They dated for 3 years. She worked at his company. When they broke up, she leaked confidential information to competitors. It nearly destroyed everything he'd built. He's been like ice ever since." So that was the ex Sarah mentioned. The woman who'd hurt him badly enough that he'd rather buy a wife than risk his heart again. Back at the table, Mrs. Kim asked pointed questions. How did they decide to marry so quickly? Wasn't Esther concerned about leaving her career in London? When were they planning to have children? "Mother," Ming said, his voice carrying a warning. "It's fine," Esther interjected. "Mrs. Kim, I understand your concerns. This all happened fast. But Ming made me believe in something I'd stopped believing was possible. He made me feel seen and valued in ways I never had before. As for children, we're focusing on building our life together first." The lies came easier than they should have. Mrs. Kim's expression softened slightly. On the drive home, Ming was quiet. "Finally," he said, "you handled that well. I'm good at reading rooms and telling people what they want to hear. It's part of my job. Is that what you're doing with me? Telling me what I want to hear?" Esther looked at him in the darkened car. "I haven't figured out what you want to hear yet. You don't give much away. That's intentional." "I know, but it makes this harder than it needs to be. If we're going to convince people we're in love, you need to at least pretend you enjoy my company." Ming pulled into the penthouse garage and turned off the engine. In the sudden silence, he said, "What if I do enjoy your company? What if that's the problem?" Esther's heart skipped. "Ming, forget I said anything." He got out of the car, closing the door on whatever moment had almost happened between them. After that night, things changed. Ming started coming home earlier. They'd have dinner together, talking about their days. He asked about her architecture projects with genuine interest. She learned about the pressure he faced from the board, the constant battle to maintain control of the company he'd built from nothing. One evening, Esther found him on the balcony, staring at the city lights. "Rough day?" she asked, joining him. "Sarah contacted me. She wants to meet. Says she has information about the board I need to hear." Esther's stomach tightened. "Are you going to meet her?" "I don't know. Part of me thinks it's a trap. Part of me wonders if I owe her at least a conversation. Do you still have feelings for her?" Ming turned to look at Esther, his dark eyes unreadable in the dim light. "No, but I do still feel guilty. When the company started growing, I became obsessed. I worked 100-hour weeks. I forgot birthdays, canceled dates, prioritized every meeting over every moment with her. She begged me to find balance, and I told her the company had to come first. When she left, part of me was relieved because it was one less thing demanding my attention. The honesty was raw and painful. That's why you wanted this arrangement. A wife who wouldn't demand anything from you." "Yes. And now?" Esther asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ming stepped closer. "Now I find myself wanting to come home early to see you. Wanting to know about your day, your thoughts, your dreams. Now I find myself terrified because this was supposed to be simple, and you're making it complicated just by existing." Esther's breath caught. "The contract says." "I know what the contract says." Ming's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing her cheekbone. "But the contract didn't account for you being you. It didn't account for how you fill this empty space with warmth. It didn't account for me falling in love with my fake wife." Before Esther could respond, Ming kissed her. It was nothing like she'd imagined. It wasn't cold or calculated or part of some public performance. It was desperate and honest and full of months of suppressed longing. When they broke apart, Esther was trembling. "We can't do this." "Why not?" "Because in 10 months, I'm supposed to walk away. That was the deal. Clean break, no complications." "What if I don't want you to walk away?" Ming's voice was rough with emotion. "What if I want to rip up the contract and build something real?" Esther wanted that more than she'd wanted anything in her life. But fear held her back. "You barely know me. I know you take your coffee with too much sugar and no cream. I know you hum when you're concentrating. I know you video call your brother every day and your face lights up when he's doing well. I know you rearranged my entire living room while I was away on business because you couldn't stand how cold it looked, and then you apologized for a week even though it's the first time this place has felt like home. I know you, Esther. And I'm in love with you. Tears spilled down Esther's cheeks. I'm in love with you too. God help me, I'm in love with you too. They made love that night, and it wasn't part of any contract or performance. It was two people who'd been lonely for too long finally finding each other. In the morning, tangled in Ming's sheets with sunlight streaming through the windows, Esther felt happy in a way she'd forgotten was possible. Ming traced patterns on her shoulder, his expression softer than she'd ever seen it. We should tell people, he said. Make this official. Your board already thinks we're married. I mean really married. Not a contract. A choice. Before Esther could respond, Ming's phone rang. He glanced at it and his expression darkened. It's Sarah. Answer it, Esther said, even as anxiety twisted in her stomach. Ming put the phone on speaker. Sarah's voice filled the room, smooth and calculated. Ming, I need to see you. It's about the board. They're planning something, and you need to know before the gala next week. What kind of something? Not over the phone. Meet me tomorrow. Alone. After he hung up, Ming looked at Esther. She's playing some kind of game. Then don't go. What if she's telling the truth? What if the board really is planning something? Esther kissed him gently. Whatever happens, we face it together. That's what real marriage means, right? Right, Ming agreed, but his expression remained troubled. The next day, Ming met Sarah at a cafe. She was as beautiful as Esther remembered from photos, all polished elegance and calculated charm. Thank you for coming, Sarah said. I know you don't trust me. Get to the point. The board knows your marriage isn't real. They've been investigating Esther since the wedding. They know about the money transfer, the timing with her brother's surgery, everything. Ming's blood went cold. How? Because I told them, Sarah said simply. I wanted you to hurt the way you hurt me. I wanted to watch your perfect plan fall apart. Why are you telling me this now? Sarah's composure cracked slightly. Because watching you with her at your mother's dinner, I realized something. You love her. Really love her. The way you never loved me. And it made me see how pathetic I've been, holding on to resentment instead of moving on. If you're looking for forgiveness, I'm not. I'm giving you a warning. The board is going to confront you at the gala. They'll demand proof your marriage is real, and if you can't provide it, they'll remove you as CEO. You have 3 days to figure out how to convince them or lose everything. Ming drove back to the penthouse in a daze. When he told Esther everything, she went pale. The money, she whispered. The contract says if the marriage is exposed as fake, I have to return everything. Daniel's treatments aren't finished. If I have to give the money back. You won't, Ming said firmly, pulling her close. We'll figure this out. How? They have proof. Bank transfers don't lie. Then we tell them a different truth. Ming tilted her face up to meet his eyes. We tell them yes, it started as a contract. Yes, you needed money for your brother. Yes, I needed a wife for the board. But somewhere between the contract and now, it became real. We fell in love. That's the truth, Esther. We just tell them the truth. At the gala 3 days later, Sarah's revelation came exactly as she'd warned. Esther was standing by the champagne table when Sarah approached with her poisonous smile and devastating knowledge. Now, with Sarah's question hanging in the air, does he even know you've fallen in love with him? Esther made a choice. Yes, she said clearly. He knows. Because I told him. Because this marriage might have started as a transaction, but it became something neither of us planned for. It became real. Sarah's expression flickered with something like respect. The board is waiting in the conference room. They want to speak with both of you. Good luck, Esther. I mean that. 20 minutes later, Esther and Ming sat facing the board. The chairman laid out everything they knew. The contract, the money, the timeline. Do you deny any of this? He asked. No, Ming said firmly. It's all true. I hired Esther to be my wife because I was a coward who couldn't risk getting hurt again. I reduced something sacred to a business transaction because that's the only language I spoke. And you, Mrs. Kim? The chairman turned to Esther. You married for money. Yes, Esther said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. My brother was dying. I was desperate. When Ming offered me a way to save him, I took it. I'm not proud of the deception, but I'd do it again in a heartbeat because Daniel is alive and thriving. The board members murmured among themselves. The chairman leaned forward. Then how do we know this marriage is legitimate now? How do we know this isn't just another performance? Ming stood, pulling Esther up with him. Because I'm standing here, willing to lose everything rather than lose her. Because the woman I married on paper 10 months ago isn't the woman standing next to me now. That woman was a stranger doing me a favor. This woman is my partner, my best friend, and the person I want to build a life with. Fire me if you want. Remove me from the company I built. But don't ask me to pretend I'm not desperately in love with my wife. Esther turned to Ming, tears streaming down her face. You'd really give up the company? For me? I'd give up everything for you, Ming said simply. Because you already gave me everything when you made this sterile life feel like home. The chairman cleared his throat. That's quite a testimony. Mrs. Kim, do you have anything to add? Esther looked at the board, then at Ming, then back at the board. Yes. Marriage is a choice you make every day. Ming and I might have made the wrong choice when we started this, but we're making the right choice now. We're choosing each other. Not because a contract says we have to, but because we want to. That's what makes it real. The board deliberated for 30 agonizing minutes. When they returned, the chairman's expression was unreadable. Mr. Kim, your methods were unorthodox and ethically questionable. However, your honesty today and your obvious commitment to your marriage demonstrate the stability we require in our CEO. We're satisfied that your marriage is genuine now, regardless of how it began. You'll retain your position. The relief was overwhelming. Ming pulled Esther close, and she buried her face in his shoulder. Outside the conference room, Sarah was waiting. She looked at them both, then said quietly, I'm sorry. For all of it. I hope you're happy together. I hope you find happiness too, Esther said, surprising herself by meaning it. 6 months later, Esther and Ming stood in a small chapel surrounded by the people they loved. Daniel was there, walking without assistance, tears streaming down his face as he watched his sister marry the man she loved. Mrs. Kim dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. Hannah was beaming. Maya stood as maid of honor, whispering, You broke your promise about not falling in love, but I forgive you. This time, the vows were real. This time, the kiss was a beginning, not a performance. This time, when Ming slipped the ring on Esther's finger, it meant forever. I love you, Ming whispered against her lips. I love you too, Esther replied. Even though you're still terrible at keeping your living room organized. And you're still terrible at following contracts. Good thing we ripped up that contract. Good thing we wrote a new one. This one just says forever. As they walked down the aisle together, Esther thought about how she'd come to soul desperate and broken, willing to sell 18 months of her life to save her brother. She'd never imagined she'd find something worth more than any amount of money. A partner who saw her completely and loved her anyway. A home that finally felt like belonging, and a future built on choice rather than contract. Sometimes the best things in life start with impossible choices and dangerous risks. Sometimes you have to be willing to lose everything to find out what really matters. And sometimes a fake marriage becomes the realest thing you've ever known. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment telling us what you thought. What would you have done in Esther's position? Would you have signed the contract? Let us know below, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss our next captivating story. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes love finds you in the most unexpected contracts.